Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you joining us today. We've got a brand new story to dive into, so let's get started. My name is Daniel, and let me tell you, there's nothing more painful than realizing that the life you thought you built was nothing but an illusion. I've been working in construction for years to provide for my wife, Emily, and our 3-year-old son, Noah. But over time, I started noticing something unusual in Emily's behavior. Whenever I had a day off or got home early, she'd always find a reason to leave the house. It was always something different: grocery shopping, meeting friends, or handling some work errands. But what really got my attention was the rush. She'd grab her keys and leave like she was being chased. At first, I tried to brush it off. She worked remotely, so her schedule was flexible. Maybe she just enjoyed being outside the house. But the more I observed, the more it didn't add up. She wasn't meeting clients. Most of her work was online. There were no pressing deadlines that could explain her constant absences. And even when she wasn't working, she still found excuses to leave. The pattern became hard to ignore. It made me wonder if she was so eager to get out when I was home. What was she doing when I wasn't around? I began paying closer attention. Her short trips would sometimes stretch on for hours. When I asked her where she had been, her answers were always vague. If I pressed her for details, she'd get defensive, almost angry. That's when I knew something was off, and I had a feeling I wasn't going to like what I found. Instead of confronting her directly, I decided to test her. Sometimes, the best way to understand someone is to give them the chance to reveal their true colors. So one evening, I sat Emily down and told her something that should have been devastating news. I told her I lost my job. To make things worse, I told her a bad investment wiped out all our savings. No backup plan, no emergency fund, nothing. In reality, our savings were perfectly fine, tucked away in an account that wasn't even in my name. But Emily didn't know that. I wanted to see how my wife would react when she thought the man who had always taken care of her suddenly had nothing left to offer. And let me tell you, her response was chilling. She wasn't concerned, not even for a second. She just looked at me and said, "And what do you want me to do about it?" There was no sympathy. No, we'll get through this together. I sat there in complete shock. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about herself. She started talking about how hard things would be for her and for little Noah. Not once did she ask how I was holding up. That was all I needed to know. And from that moment on, everything changed. The second she thought I was truly down, she stopped pretending. She started treating me like I was beneath her. I lost all value in her eyes. She would come and go as she pleased, barely telling me where she was headed, and return at odd hours with no explanation. And when she was home, it was as if I didn't exist, unless, of course, she needed something for Noah. That was the only time she bothered to speak to me. I decided to test the waters a little more. I told her that since I was out of work, we'd have to rely on the income she made from her freelance job to cover some of our bills. The look on her face told me everything. She hated the idea. Not one bit did she like it. But what choice did she have? I was out of work, and she was my wife, right? Sometimes she'd bring in money. Other times, she'd claim she didn't have any. But I knew that was a lie, because she still managed to buy herself new clothes and get her hair done. And when she did contribute, it came with a price. She'd complain endlessly, making sure I knew how resentful she was for every single dollar she spent. Anything would set her off. If the house wasn't perfect, if Noah was too noisy, if I asked her anything at the wrong time, she'd snap. It wasn't just me either. I saw how she started getting irritated with Noah for the smallest things. It was like her resentment towards the situation was taking over. The idea of contributing to the household expenses made her feel like she was being wronged. That was when I knew for sure she never saw me as an equal in this marriage. In her mind, my only worth was in what I could provide. The second she thought I had nothing to offer, I became invisible to her. So I played along. I let her believe I was struggling. I didn't argue. I let her show me exactly who she was when she thought I had nothing left to give. And every day, she made it clearer and clearer. She never loved me. She only loved what I could do for her. One One evening, Emily sat me down with a calm expression and said, "I'm pregnant." I barely had time to process those words before she followed it up with a dagger to the chest. "But it's not yours," she added, as if it were no big deal. She didn't even flinch, not even considering how I might react. In her mind, she thought I was so desperate to hold on to the family that I'd accept whatever she threw my way. But she was wrong. I just stared at her, letting the silence stretch between us. Then, slowly, I smirked. "That's funny." She frowned, confused about why I was laughing. That's when I reached into the drawer beside me, pulled out a plain white envelope, and tossed it onto the table between us. "Open it," I said, leaning back in my chair. Reluctantly, she slid the papers out. The moment her eyes fell on the test results, her entire demeanor changed. The color drained from her face, and for the first time, her confidence cracked. The results weren't for the baby she was carrying. They were for our 3-year-old son, Noah. The test showed that he wasn't mine either. She stared at the paper, as though reading it again would somehow change the words printed on it. I watched as her mouth opened and closed, struggling to find something, anything, to say. But what could she say? She had been lying to me for years, and now I had proof. I leaned forward, my voice calm, almost amused. "So let me get this straight. You thought you could tell me you're pregnant with another man's child, and I'd just accept it. And all this time, you had me raising a kid that isn't even mine?" She stammered, her eyes darting around for something to say, but I cut her off. "You know what's even funnier?" I stood up. "I was already planning to leave in less than a week. My company secured a new construction deal overseas, and I was going to take it." Her head snapped up, eyes wide. "What? What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm done with you. I was already making arrangements to leave before you confessed this." I shrugged. "Now, you just made it easier for me. You've been unfaithful, but being pregnant with another man's child is the final nail in the coffin." Panic flickered across her face. "Wait, what happens to me? What about Noah?" She clutched the test results like they might change the truth. I let out a small chuckle. "Take Noah to his real father. You're an adult. You'll figure it out." Her face crumbled as she realized, too late, that she had played herself in the worst possible way. The next morning, Victoria's desperate attempt to undo everything began. She must have stayed up all night trying to figure out how to salvage her position, because the moment I stepped out of the bedroom, she was waiting for me. Her entire demeanor had shifted. The cold, distant wife I had endured for months was suddenly replaced by a woman eager to remind me of our history together. She smiled, asked if I wanted coffee, and even reached for my hand, gestures that had been non-existent for so long. I wasn't surprised. I knew exactly what she was doing. The moment I revealed my plans, her mind must have raced to figure out what she could do next. I'm sure the idea of going through the legal system and trying to drain me for as much money as she could had crossed her mind. But how long did she really have to pull that off? Even if she tried to drag me to court, she'd need a lawyer, and that wouldn't come cheap. Then there was the biggest problem for her. I was leaving the country. Who exactly was she going to fight this battle with? Even if, by some miracle, she found a way to come after me legally, what claim did she have? The kids weren't mine. I had undeniable proof. There was no alimony to fight for because the evidence of her infidelity was overwhelming. The way she had treated me, how she abandoned the marriage the second she thought I had nothing to offer. Any judge would see right through her. She had nothing, no leverage, no advantage, no safety net. So at that moment, begging and trying to appeal to me was her best shot, and she knew it. At first, I said nothing. I just watched her because I already knew what was going on. It wasn't regret. It wasn't love. It was fear. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing what I provided. She knew her new baby daddy had no plans to stick around, so she turned back to the man she had disrespected, lied to, and cheated on for years. And now, she wanted to talk about us. After hearing that I might be getting some money. She brought up old memories, the vacations we'd taken, the late nights we spent dreaming about our future, the times I'd held her through life's struggles. She told me she made a mistake, that she let stress and emotions get the best of her, that our family was worth saving. But I had already seen through the act. If I had been jobless and struggling like you thought I was, would you be standing here, suddenly affectionate? Of course not. She only cared now because she realized I had something valuable, an opportunity. Emily didn't want to lose access to me, so she tried even harder. At one point, she broke down in tears, telling me she couldn't raise 2 kids on her own and that she needed me. But the truth was, she only needed my security, my money, my stability, not me. She had already made her choice, and now she was going to live with the consequences. I had no intention of letting Emily make my departure any more difficult. She thought she had a whole week left to convince me to stay, to manipulate me with nostalgia and empty promises. But in reality, my flight was only 2 days away. I had planned everything down to the last detail. Documents secured, tickets booked, loose ends tied up. I wasn't about to let her desperation trap me in a life I no longer wanted. The night before my flight, I moved in silence while Emily lay fast asleep, completely unaware of what was coming. I packed my bags. I had already taken most of my important belongings over the past few days, so there wasn't much left to gather. No goodbyes, no last words, no final arguments, just a quiet, deliberate exit. I took one last look at the house, a place that was supposed to be a home, but now felt like a prison. I was finally escaping. Then, without hesitation, I walked out the door, leaving behind a woman who had spent years lying to me. As the plane rumbled down the runway, the engines roared and the wheels lifted. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. I had been holding my breath for so long, pretending, enduring, staying silent. But now, as I watched the city shrink beneath me, I finally let out a slow, steady breath. I was free. Emily had lied to me for years. She had humiliated me, disrespected me, and taken my presence for granted. And for months, I had to play along, acting like I was broken, like I had nowhere to go, like I had no future without her. But the truth was, she was the one who had no future without me. And now, that was her problem, not mine. I thought about her for a brief second, but there was nothing left in me to feel. I wasn't sitting there imagining what she was doing, who she was calling, or how she was reacting to me leaving sooner than she thought. None of it mattered. She could cry, she could beg, she could scheme. I was already gone. I didn't hate her. I didn't wish her harm. I just didn't care. And that was the real victory, indifference. I leaned back in my seat and looked out at the sky, the vastness of it, the new world ahead of me. No baggage, no weight dragging me down, just me moving forward. I wasn't just leaving Emily behind. I was leaving behind the version of myself who once thought love meant sacrificing dignity. That man was gone, and I wasn't looking back. I know there are men out there stuck in the same situation I was in, feeling trapped in a marriage where they're nothing more than a paycheck, an afterthought, a man who's only acknowledged when it's convenient. If that's you, listen carefully. Don't argue. Don't beg. Don't waste your breath trying to get her to see your worth. A woman who doesn't respect you will never truly love you. And if she ever comes back around, it's not because she suddenly realized your value. It's because she realized she's losing her security. The biggest mistake a man can make is tying his entire existence to a woman who wouldn't hesitate to replace him the second things get rough. The moment Emily believed I had no money, her true colors showed. That's when I learned the most important lesson. Love that only exists when you're useful isn't love at all. It's a transaction. And once you see it for what it is, you stop feeling the need to convince her to stay. So if you're in my shoes, stop trying. Instead, plan. Get your finances in order. Protect yourself. Move in silence. And when the time comes, don't make a scene. Just leave. No warnings. No emotional goodbyes. Because the second you show that you can live without her, that's when she'll suddenly want to fight for the marriage. But by then, it won't matter. You'll already be gone. I didn't get revenge. I didn't need to. My freedom was the only victory I needed. And trust me, there's nothing sweeter than knowing you walked away with your dignity while she's left with nothing but regret.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on notifications so you never miss more shocking real-life stories like this. See you in the next one.